Hello, my name is Hee-Jae and let's talk about the Bible. Yesterday, I talked about how Luke put this story in this spot, in this time frame for a reason. Now, I want to go further back. In chapter 9, in Luke chapter 9, verse 1, Jesus sends out the 12 before he sends out the 72. Now, after he sends out the 12, in verse 7, we see something very interesting, a political tension that is building. In verse 7, it says, "Now Herod, the tetrarch, heard about all that was happening, and he was perplexed, because it was said by some that John had been raised from the dead, by some that Elijah had appeared, and by others that one of the prophets of old had risen. Herod said, 'John I beheaded, but who is this about whom I hear such things?' And he sought to see him." Now, Jesus is in the radar, in the scope, in the crosshairs of Herod. And in the same way, he is in the crosshairs of the elders, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the leaders of Israel. Now, after that, what happens in verse 10, chapter 9, verse 10, Jesus goes out and feeds the 5,000. In a later date, we will be discussing this event, but in short, because of the 40 years of wandering in the desert where God had fed the Israelites with manna and quail, this becomes a monumental symbol within the people's minds. And afterwards, what happens is Jesus sends out the 72, and it really starts to threaten the leaders of Israel. So why this specific question? When the lawyer stood up to ask this question, "What shall I do to inherit eternal life?" he already knew the answer to it. And Jesus knew that he already knew the answer. And Jesus' answer was, "What is written in the law?" It is interesting that when we look at the Bible, we think that the Old Testament is eye for eye, teeth for teeth. But in actuality, love your neighbors as yourself is already written in the Old Testament in Leviticus. So the answer is already there. But the reason why this man was asking this question was to ask, "And who is my neighbor?" That was his goal. And the reason why that was his goal, we go back and look at Luke chapter 9 verse 10. Jesus feeds the 5,000. I mentioned before, the problem is he fed those people in Bethsaida. And guess what? It's in Syria. It's north, how would I say it? In your view, it'd be northeast of Galilee. It's not in the Jewish territory. They are Gentiles. And Jesus fed 5,000 people. There were Jews involved, but he did it in a non-Jewish land. So, for this lawmaker or this lawyer, Jesus served up this miracle and he was healing people outside of the chosen people. He's trying to suss out if Jesus is thinking the same way as they are. And to this, Jesus gives this parable. This is how I look into the Bible. The context, the whys. And through it, try to find out what Jesus, what God's intention is in his actions, in his words. So come along for the ride. Subscribe, leave a comment below, and let's see what tomorrow brings. See you guys on the other side. Bye-bye.